What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You guys already know what it is. It's draft season all year long. Today, we're going to be doing our way too early top 5 quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL draft. So let's get this thing started with the person who is really the consensus #1 overall quarterback and maybe even #1 overall player on some people's boards in Caleb Williams, who had himself a college football season to remember, winning the 2022 Heisman Trophy for the best player in college football, and deservingly so, right? Just take a look at the statistics. That 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio says a lot, because this dude was making play after play, week after week, and was doing some crazy things and barely giving the ball away. So Caleb Williams, just a tremendous overall prospect. This is a guy who's already playing at a very high level and also has a very high ceiling and is already getting comparisons to Patrick Mahomes, which is crazy, but we'll get to that in a bit. So Caleb Williams, right? I mean, we knew that this dude was good from the moment he stepped on the field at Oklahoma, just took the job away from Spencer Rattler, turned that program around temporarily, then left. Now that program is not so great, unfortunately, and went to USC, brought his talents there. His game was ultimately elevated, right? He still had Lincoln Riley. He had a great wide receiver in Jordan Addison, and you just saw him absolutely go off. So you have a talented guy who elevates the players around him. And then if you have really talented players around him, you know how far he can take you, right? And it's just, the production is off the charts. The talent is off the charts. This is probably the best quarterback prospect that we've seen since Trevor Lawrence, and you could really make the argument that he might be the better NFL quarterback when it's all said and done. So Caleb Williams is one of those guys that you don't see in every NFL draft, right? Last year had some good quarterbacks with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but there was constantly a debate about who was the #1 guy on many people's boards. There was a disagreement upon that. This year, I don't think there's going to be much of that. It's Caleb Williams 1, and we can make our list after that. This guy is just that talented. And again, going back to the Patrick Mahomes comparisons, it is absurd because let's not hype this guy up too much where we're saying, okay, this could arguably be the best quarterback in the entire league. I don't know about that, but he can definitely be in the conversation year after year. But in terms of how is his play style similar to Patrick Mahomes, what's the improvisational part of his game, the game that can't really be taught, it just needs to be felt. And not all of the quarterbacks in the league obviously have that ability, but Caleb Williams, you can just see in his style of play that he has that. Just his ability to sense pressure, even if he can't see it, right? Maneuver around the pocket and avoid that pressure, extend the play, make plays when they're out of system, when they're completely broken. This is the guy that you want under center. Just composed, big-time playmaker, and is willing to take his chances down the field. More times than not, will succeed and will rarely turn over the ball in the process. You can see that in his stats, right? And it translates to wins at the same time, right? So this guy's aggressive, but he's safe at the same time in a way, which is incredible. And he becomes very productive, and he's a winner because of it. So, again, so many reasons to like Caleb Williams. We're not going to get any more into that. I feel like I gave a good in-depth analysis, but him winning the 2022 Heisman, right, getting all of these honors, putting up these statistics, is ultimately going to make him a top 5 talent when it's all said and done, when the 2024 draft comes around. I'm mumbling words because I'm so excited about how good this dude is. And again, this guy is so good, teams will tank for him. They won't admit it, but I know some teams already have him in the back of their minds as they enter the 2023 NFL season. Now, Drake Maye is my #2 overall quarterback. Now, I don't want to sell him short. This is a very, very good quarterback prospect, but Caleb Williams, I think, is just on a different level. He's in a realm of his own, and so Drake Maye is the #2, but I don't think it's close. Again, no shot at Drake Maye. I just think Caleb Williams is that good. But Drake Maye, you can see statistically how well he played. And if you watch North Carolina play this year, they won a lot of games because of this guy, right? His ability to put the football into tight windows, has extremely good arm strength, is extremely accurate on the run as well, and is a proficient runner as well. So I feel like I said as well a lot in that clump of words. So anyway, but seriously, a guy who can extend the play, use his feet to make more plays. It's already a threat, with his ability to stretch the field with his arm and his deadly accuracy. But when you have to factor in, right, his improvisational skills as well, that's what takes his game to the next level and makes him a very desirable quarterback. And his speed, right, is one of the more underrated traits about his game. He can really outrun some guys and get huge chunk plays. So I think his ability to stretch the field and make big plays on, using his legs or his arm, this is why teams are going crazy for him, and this could be another guy that teams are tanking for. Even if they can't get Williams, I think this is a guy that they can take and feel comfortable with. I have him regarded as a top 5 talent at the moment. Another one of these guys who makes big plays, pushes the ball down the field, and doesn't turn over the ball a ton. Just super efficient football player. So Drake Maye, it's understandable why there's a lot of hype around him. Again, not trying to sell him short by saying he's not close to Caleb Williams. That's just respect to Caleb Williams. But Drake Maye, again, is another one of those guys that you could have argued would have been the first overall pick if he had declared for the last year's draft. Now, my number 3 quarterback, and I guess this is where the controversy can kind of start. But again, it's a way too early top 5 rankings. I'm projecting a lot of things to happen that I'm not sure will happen. And that's what makes this so interesting, because the list is subject to change after the 2023 college football season is over. But Quinn Ewers is someone that I've believed in since he was recruited to Ohio State and then ultimately transferred to Texas because of the lack of opportunity that he was seeing there. And I view him as a mid to late first round pick because I do think that this season is going to allow him to bring all of his talent together and show off what he truly can be as a quarterback. Now, keep in mind, he is going to be a junior this year, I believe, and it was his sophomore year last year was his first year starting as a quarterback for either Ohio State or Texas. So this was his real first action in the college football level, and played all right. Expected him to play a little bit better, but that injury against Bama, I know, kind of rattled him at some point and kind of rattled the rest of the team, right, because they had to go between him and Hudson Card. And so I think him starting off the season as the starting quarterback, right, and having that continuity throughout the year, barring any injuries, I think it's going to be a big year for Quinn Ewers. He also has 2 projected first-round wide receivers in Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy on his team. So I think having those weapons, along with the talent that he already possesses on his own, is going to set him up for a huge season this year, and is going to put his arm talent on full display. And you also see this is another guy who has some wheels to his game as well. So you see how the quarterback position has slowly evolved, where these guys have to all be dual threat, right? If you want to be considered going to the league, you don't see many pure pocket quarterbacks anymore, right? A lot of these guys are able to stretch the game and stretch the play with their field, what I meant to say. But again, underwhelming statistical season, you can see, right? Played 10 games last year. I expect a huge leap from Quinn Ewers and ultimately expect to see him drafted in the first round this year. Mid to late first round pick means anywhere from 11 to 32. So it's a wide range, but I think a quarterback needy team, right, if he plays well and the way that I expect him to this year, we'll take him between that range. And if it gets desperate enough, maybe the top 5, but he's got to have a stellar season in order for that to happen. So I think mid to late first round projection is reasonable. But again, if he has a season like he did last year, I would expect him to return, maybe transfer out of Texas. But again, expecting big things from him, which is why I have him as my number 3 quarterback at the current moment. Number 4, this is another dark horse at the moment. Now, some of you guys might be like me, and I'm also kind of transitioning to how much upside does this guy have, right? How many coachable traits does this guy have, and how many things can we not work on where it's like, okay, well, we're stuck with this guy. He can't get better at this portion of his game. There is a lot that Joe Milton can work on. There's so much talent that he possesses as well, just as a physical freak. But there are so many things that are coachable that he can improve on, and he can take, let's say, that Jalen Hurts leap, when he gets to the NFL, right? He has a talent, and he has the physical traits, right? This dude is 6'4", 240 pounds, has an absolute rocket for an arm, and let's not throw that around, right? That trade around too much. Like, this dude's arm is legit. I mean, he can throw 60, 70 yards in the game. We've seen him do it in game, just effortlessly. I mean, just the flick of the wrist, and this ball is traveling like you've never seen it before. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And so I think from the small sample size that we've seen from Joe Milton, there is a lot to like, and there is a lot to be impressed by. I understand that this Mickey Mouse offense that he plays in at Tennessee is not very good from the perspective of an NFL scout who's trying to find their franchise quarterback, but what he possesses internally, right, and all of the strength in his arm and his legs and throughout his entire body. This dude is a prospect that I don't think teams are going to want to miss out on. Now, this mid to late first round projection is another one that's subject to change, as everything else is on this list. But I feel confident enough in his raw athleticism for him to be taken here. I mean, this is essentially the Anthony Richardson of the 2024 NFL draft, right? The guy who has all the physical tools in the world, but isn't necessarily relying on his statistical performance in his season and his offense to really project him over the top. I mean, granted, Anthony Richardson went number 4 anyway, but Joe Milton, considering what offense he's in and what age he's at currently, at like 23, 24 by the time he enters the draft, that could be things that turn off teams and refrain from taking him in the first round. But again, I think seeing the upside that he possesses is going to make him a desirable first-round talent, mid to late first round, similar to Quinn Ewers. But again, efficient with the football, as was Hendon Hooker, 971 yards, right? 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's all fantastic. So to see that he can put it together and he understands an offense along with how much talent he possesses already, it's a scary combo if he can really get it together. So I really like Joe Milton and the chances that he can take and the leap that he will take here in 2023 to continue the dominant success that Tennessee saw last season. Now, our final guy on this list, and number 5, SHEDEUR Sanders. Now, before we get into him, let's talk about a couple of guys that we don't have on this list that you might have expected. Michael Penix and Bo Nix, those are the two guys that I have following up on this list. The thing is, for me, right, and this is my list at the end of the day, I have a bias against left-handed QBs, just not a huge fan. We haven't seen any significant left-handed quarterbacks in the league in a long time. I mean, I would say the last true difference maker that was a left-handed quarterback was Michael Vick, right? I mean, that dude had an absolute arm, and his athleticism, I mean, Lamar Jackson is the only one who even comes close to that, right? So he was a special guy, and I just don't think that Michael Penix has any of those over-the-top desirable traits that you would want, and I just don't think that he excels in anything. He's just good enough at everything, and same goes with Bo Nix. I think he's just good at everything, but really doesn't excel in everything. That's the best way that I can describe it. It's just nothing that makes you go, wow, when you see these guys throw the ball and play the game. No disrespect to those guys because they're playing the game at a very high level. They're doing great things for the programs they're at. These are two teams that could potentially be competing for a national championship. You could maybe put them in that conversation, right? But in terms of NFL prospects, just not a huge fan. Now, you might be saying, well, then why the hell is SHEDEUR Sanders on here? Well, SHEDEUR Sanders, I think, super smart football player, right? And we've only seen him play at the Division II FCS level, right? But what he was able to accomplish there is nothing short of stellar, right? I mean, had a very, very efficient season, 70% completion percentage. And to go along with that, right, 40 touchdowns to his 6 interceptions, right? Almost a similar ratio to Caleb Williams. Now, granted, Caleb Williams did do it in a Power 5 conference, and the same conference that Sanders is going to be playing in now. So I think this year is a huge prove-it year. And there's another one of these guys that I think is going to take a huge leap and is going to be – it's actually going to be benefited a lot by moving up into the Division I program in Colorado. But, I mean, his ability to push the ball downfield too, make plays outside of the pocket, right? Again, such a huge trait to be improvisational in today's game, right? And some guys do it much better than others, right? And I think SHEDEUR Sanders right here at number 5 on this list is at a good spot. Has a really good arm, really fast dude as well, right? It's hard to catch up with this dude when he's in the open field. I like what he has potentially, right? And it is going to be a transition for him, so I don't know if he even commits into the NFL draft this year after this season, but I do have high hopes for him. I do expect him to have the same success. Obviously not as much, but I do expect him to be one of the more proficient quarterbacks in the league, at the college football level. I talk about the NFL so much that I just say league. In the NCAA, I expect him to be, statistically up there in the quarterback ranking. So I like SHEDEUR Sanders. I think there's a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of room for growth in his game. That's why right now I currently have him projected as a day 2 guy, so that can be anywhere from the first pick in the second round all the way to the last pick in the third round. But I think having that that Hall of Fame blood in him too. That might be persuading me a little bit more to put him at number 5 on this list because he is Dion's son after all. But he's got that swagger to his game, right? He's got that confidence, that composure that I really like when you watch him, and was dominant at the FCS level, right? I mean, Jackson State quickly became a powerhouse under Dion and SHEDEUR. So I love what they're bringing to the Colorado program. I think there's a lot of confidence in the building right now, and it's all led by SHEDEUR Sanders. So really like what this guy has to offer as a quarterback prospect. Again, I don't think that this is a guy that's going to be taken in round 1, but I think could be one of those quarterbacks that's taken in day 2 and say, hey, this could potentially be our guy for the future. So let me know what you guys think about this way too early top 5 quarterbacks rankings in the comment section below. And if you guys like NFL draft content like this, consider subscribing. But until then, I'll see you guys all later. Peace.